honestly the journey of addiction. I'm sure we have different nuances there, but how that weaves into spirituality and the new age space of plant medicine. And so to begin, I want to share a little bit of my journey because I don't even know if you know anything about it. It's not something I often speak about, but I want my audience to actually have an inside scoop into this. And so let's venture back to my origin story with addiction. I grew up in a very unique environment. Substances were always a part of my family's life. For context, at family dinners, we'd be passing around Percocets like candy, like painkillers would just be like, hey, you want some of this? And I wouldn't need an oxy, but I would take it because I wanted to numb myself. And that's how I navigated my household. That's how everybody navigated my household. And so when I was about 14, 15 years old, we talked about this actually because you're born and raised in Michigan. Yes. I went to school in Traverse City. And this is where I was exposed to, well, every kid's ADHD and every kid's, popping Adderall. And so this started my addiction journey, really, really getting invested in taking Adderall consistently, stealing it from others, doing whatever I needed to do to fit the need. And I'm sure you know what that means, like this feeling of I need to constantly fill this emptiness. And for me, it was all about achievement. That was what kind of drove the need for Adderall. I wanted to achieve. I was moving away from home at a young age, being an actor, trying to pursue a career, trying to get there. And then it was like, well, now I want to be good enough to get into college. And so then it was kind of feeding this loop. And for those of you who know anything about Adderall, for context, I was taking 230 milligrams of Adderall a day, and like the prescribed dose is like 30 milligrams of long lasting. So that was not a divine dose. That was not sober spirituality. That was staying up for 3 days on end, learning theory books in an hour, spending 5 hours getting my makeup done, being obsessed. Like it became so scary how far I took my addiction. And 3 days, no sleep. Yeah. I told my mom finally, hey, I think I need help. And I don't fault you for this, mother, but this is how some of us learn how to grow. My mom is my greatest fan. So she's watching this, but she made me quit cold turkey. Yeah. Hi, Mom. Talking about the story here. She made me quit cold turkey because obviously I finished my pills earlier than the month before you can get them, refilled. And that was one of the hardest experiences I had went through, obviously for the withdrawal, but also to try to fill that desire to be good enough with something that was not outside of me. And so my stance, especially in the psychedelic and plant medicine space, now having had my spiritual awakening journey, have been sober for many years now, definitely sober from Adderall, but just from the addiction culture in spirituality as well. I would definitely say that the plant medicine space has become an addiction. And I'm almost apprehensive to say this, but it's true that I'm afraid to get involved in the plant medicine space because I believe that the addict always lives in me. And it's not something I'm trying to suppress, and it's not something that I'm trying to run away from. It's just something I acknowledge. I have to check in with myself and go, hey, V, chill, like you're good. You don't need to don't fill. You're okay, you're enough. God's with you. You don't have to find something to constantly fill that hole. And so that's a little bit of my origin story. Thank you for receiving my journey, like shame-free. Thank you for receiving it. And I would love to hear a little bit about your origin story into sober spirituality.
Absolutely. Similarly to you, and thank you for your vulnerability and openness about sharing that, because I know sometimes this can be a lot to open up into. And similar with you, I grew up around drinking as just a very common thing. And someone in my family was also like the definition of what textbook alcoholic. And so that was the way that I got to know drinking. And I had my first binge drink at 14, first weed smoking at 14. And then from then on out, I was off to the races. Like, I'm like, this stuff is amazing. I don't care how much I puke. I don't care how many stupid things I do. Just became part of my life, and it ruled my life. And I'm like a rebel. I was a rebel without a cause, and now I'm a rebel with a cause. And I like to say that now because now I have a purpose and a mission. But like then the mission was just to like screw everything up. Like, if you tell me no, I'm going to go do that thing, you know? Yeah. And that continued on until I had a tragedy happen when I was 15. And the first love of my life got in a drunk driving accident, crashed a car, and 3 of our friends died. And after that had happened, I was like, I don't ever want to drink again. So I just started like smoking weed. I would just get high. I like got rid of all my friends. I became a total loner. But I'm really grateful for that breakdown, because what it did is it started to plant a seed of hunger inside of me. I started to get really hungry for something that I didn't know existed. And so by becoming, going from like this popular girl, drinking all the time, skipping school, all of this stuff, to someone who was like, okay, I'm just going to smoke weed by myself, and I'm going to get really curious about things that I don't know anything about, and filling my time up with books and reading and writing and films that I would never have watched, before, that were thought-provoking and spiritual in nature. And then that led me to watching Into the Wild, which is where the guy, wants nothing to do with society and goes out and moves to Alaska and just wanted to be in nature. And I really resonated with that story. So I moved to Hawaii when I was 18, because I'm from Michigan, so it's wintertime. I'm looking at the map and I'm like, I'm going to go to Alaska. And it's snowing, like 5 feet snow, below zero, and I'm like, Alaska, or right up the map was Hawaii. I'm like, that sounds better, So I looked into Hawaii, found this farm that I could just go be alone in nature, and I moved to this farm and began growing my own food. I basically just got rid of all my material goods. I lived out of a very tiny suitcase, and I just became obsessed with nature. And then I'm at this farm. This woman gave me a stack of books, and so they were full of gardening and farming, and then tantra. And so I started studying tantra. And at the time, I still wasn't drinking, and I also was no longer smoking weed. So I was just in this experience of earth and presence, and then these tantric books. And I started to discover things that I didn't know about my body, about what I thought God was, which was, one, that my body wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was a temple. And I'd never heard that before. And so I started meditating on these concepts and breath practices. And I had my first like energetic orgasm, no substances, no nothing, just breath and presence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, God is within me. God is around me. God is everywhere, And that was this planting of a seed of spirituality. Now, that happening, I started to get hungry again for those other things, drinking, marijuana, and soon I went to this party in the jungle, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if it's like a rave. And it was my first, I guess, small-scale festival where different kinds of plant medicine were passed around. And I tried it. I don't even know what it was. I think MDMA, acid, I don't know. Mushrooms, probably at least 2 or 3 of those. Yeah. And I knew I loved it. It wasn't in a ceremonial sense. It was very much in a get high, get loaded, get escape, like an escapism. Yep. From then on out, that became part of my story. So I continued to drink. I continued to use substances. And it just progressively got worse. It progressively got worse. Yeah. San Francisco, I lived with a drug dealer, but only did like ketamine, acid, and I dropped it every day, and I started ketamine every day. And I didn't drink for like a few months while in that stint, but I literally walked around like I couldn't feel my body or skin. I didn't leave the house, and it was very isolating and depressing to not be able to live in this reality. Eventually, I figured that like maybe that stuff doesn't really work for me, so I went back to drinking, moved to New York, got addicted to cocaine, and then had a rock bottom with coke.
Part 2, I could go on about cocaine.
It's a dark one.
It's a good drug, but you just don't ever want to do it.
No.
So I hear you. Sorry, but you can't say coke without being like, I fought so many people on coke. Like, wow. One hell of a drug.
It's one hell of a drug. Yeah.